Hey Turkey, this is Dan and Margie, and we're the Gen-Xers, and today we've got another top 3 for you. We're counting down top 3 stand-up comedians of all time.
Of all time.
All time, starting from year 00 BC.
Right. Let's start off with number 3.
Who you got?
My number 3 is Norm Macdonald.
All right. Why
I
you
know.
love on Normie?
Well, Norm, I mean, these guys know Norm is one of our favorite comedians. You know, he touched a chord with me. The poop eating grin, the little, the pranks he used to pull straight faced right on live TV.
My number 3, that would be Richard Pryor. I just think he's one of the funniest of all time. One of the first people to ever do that kind of personal confessional thing, which is so popular now. Pretty much almost all comedy is that now, it seems like. But he was just very brave. He did it better than most of the people doing it now.
And I was in the room with the pipe, and the pipe said, "Hey, Rich."
And a great writer, too. Like his sketch show, which got banned after 4 episodes, got taken off the air for being too offensive. It was hilarious. He helped write Blazing Saddles, which we all know is hilarious. I would say if you want to check out some of his best bits, check out A Wino Deals with Dracula, or just the bit about when he caught himself on fire doing crack and the recovery. It's both heartbreaking and hilarious.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, man. When that fire hits your ass, that will sober your ass up quick.
It is, that's a classic, and one that I remember for sure.
Yeah.
I did not know that he had a sketch show that was banned, so I'm going to have to look that up.
You can find some right here on YouTube. That's hilarious. And Robin Williams was in it.
Really? Okay. My number 2 is a comedian named Joan Rivers. That's right. What can I say about Joan Rivers? She paved the way for so many women. All that, yada yada, but also just amazingly funny lady and a shrewd businesswoman. We watched her documentary, and I was so impressed with how organized she was and how you kind of got to see the behind the scenes from years and years of her art and craft, and it was amazing to see.
Well, this is what happens when you've been married for 30 years. We start to think alike. My number 2 also, Joan Rivers. My earliest memory of Joan Rivers is my grandma cussing because she hated when Joan Rivers hosted The Tonight Show instead of Johnny. Because she loved Johnny. But she also thought Joan was too mean, I guess, for her sense of humor. Like, she'd make those Elizabeth Taylor jokes, and she liked Elizabeth Taylor.
Every time I write a joke, I try to remember to get it on a card.
One of her biggest files, 850 jokes about Elizabeth Taylor.
My gosh, that lady could write jokes. Like, she was just hilarious. Her clean stuff from on TV to her more raunchier stuff in Vegas, equally hilarious.
I hate housework. Housework is boring and it is futile. You make the bed, you do the dishes. 6 months later, you got to start all over again. Even when we first got married, because his mother, may she rest in peace, soon.
Probably when what really solidified her in my top 3 was the Joan Rivers roast on Comedy Central. When you had all these great comedians get up there roaster, including Gilbert Gottfried, which was probably the best roast moment ever.
It was early in my career. I walked into the green room at Catch a Rising Star. Who do I see? The great Joan Rivers.
Which brings us to Gilbert Gottfried. I am a 76-year-old woman. I sat there. I haven't got that much fucking time left.
I mean, my feelings on the Comedy Central roaster, sometimes they're all right, sometimes they're just kind of dumb. But anyway, she got up and kicked everybody's butt.
Yeah.
She was freaking great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely Joan, number 2 for me too.
Again, you can probably see it right here on YouTube, where you can also hit like and subscribe for our channel, The Gen-Xers.
That's right.
All right, so number 1,
Drum
the
roll.
number 1 comedian of all time.
Jerry Lewis?
No. Close.
Ugg from year 43 BC?
Close. He was down further on the list. He was top 10, not top 3. My number 1 was Dave Chappelle.
Thank you.
He's definitely, there are things that he does that I don't agree with. There are things that he says that I don't agree with. But I would include anybody on this list in that. Dave Chappelle tells just the best stories. And for me, he, along with Norm Macdonald, who's also on this list, they're on there. They have great storytelling abilities, and they're the masters of the long form jokes, which I love.
Chappelle is great. He's one of the best. And obviously the Chappelle Show was great. I don't know where he'd be in my top 10. I know that his most recent ones probably aren't as good as his earlier ones. To me, it seems like he's kind of rushing them a little bit. But that's neither here nor there. He has some of the greatest comedy specials of all time. And like you said, youngsters, folks who don't know this, used to be people could still like people if they didn't agree with everything they said 100%.
Right.
It's possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is possible, and it happens.
What's one of your favorite Chappelle bits? You got one you can think of?
Oh, the one where he's out and sees the baby on the street at like 2:00 in the morning. He's in the bad part of town, and he's like, I knew it was the bad part of town because there was a baby in the street. And he goes off on this. He tells a story about just being in the bad part of town. It's one of my favorite bits of his.
And the baby didn't even look scared. He was just standing there.
Anybody that's watched enough videos on this show knows that Norm is probably my favorite stand-up of all time.
Absolutely.
I think he's the GOAT. And even as much as I've watched him and thought about it, I still cannot quite put my finger on what I find so funny about him. He just thinks differently than every other person or comedian I've ever watched. The way he gets to jokes is totally unique. The punchlines are totally unique, and what happens between there is just always freaking amazing to me. And we talk about comedians who don't care or whatever, like that's supposed to be a good thing. I don't know why not caring about your audience would be a good thing. But I guess not selling out is what they mean. And he was the bravest comedian I know, and yet he never really worked all that blue, never got out there and did controversial stuff. He just did what he thought was funny, no matter what the audience might think.
No matter what. And no matter what executive producers might think or The View might think. He absolutely, he led with his heart and what he wanted to say, and he did not waver from it.
Also, another great writer, like his book is really, really good. I mean, like really good in a literary sense, not just funny.
Very smart.
Oh, he was, he was a genius. He graduated school at like 14 or 16, I can't remember, and then went to some nice college or whatever. But also smart enough to never act like he was the smartest guy in the room.
Right.
Right. So I mean, no, like he himself said, nobody wants to go see a comedian who's up there acting like he's smarter than everybody. Cough, cough, Bill Maher, I think is.
Nobody likes a guy smarter than them. That's the worst guy you can be. A guy smarter than the audience. They're going to hate you.
There's too many great Norm Macdonald bits for me to probably name them all, but his one on alcoholism, brilliant.
It's true that you have a disease and everything, but I think you got the best one.
The one he did right when the pandemic was hitting, he did this COVID bit that was super funny.
I wasn't going to talk about the coronavirus, but on the way here I got really ill.
And probably my favorite one of all time might be the grilled cheese sandwich bit.
I notice every Wednesday evening she goes with her other lady friends and they go down to the YWCA and they play basketball with each other, which is fine nowadays.
Bonus time.
Oh, what? There's a bonus footage
right.
in this very video? What are you talking about?
Overrated or underrated or perfectly rated? Maria Bamford.
Underrated.
I would say probably underrated. I'd say probably to stand-up comedian fans and to other comedians, probably perfectly rated because I think she's very respected. Well, not nearly enough people know who she is. Later in her career, or quote-unquote later, she's starting to get some fame. She had that Lady Dynamite and all that, so it's not like she's quite in the obscurity she used to be. So she's probably happy, I would guess.
Lady Dynamite, by the way, was a Netflix series, was it not?
Yeah.
A Netflix series that she had briefly. That was good. It was really good. She's a good writer.
Yeah, a lot of it dealing with her bipolar disorder. Very funny. Mm-hmm. I would also, for her, I would look up her bit on Conan, or probably other place, her doing a recipe by, what was that lady's name?
Paula Deen.
Y'all, we're going to be making some sweet dreams of little balls of butter, shortening, Crisco, fatback, cracklings, blubber, suet, margarine, mayonnaise. Each day I wake to a fresh nightmare.
Andy Griffith. Maybe you don't know Andy's stand-up.
I really don't.
Well, he would get up and tell stories from a country person's point of view, like Romeo and Juliet. He got up there and told it like a country bumpkin. Very funny. And his most famous one is probably What They Called It Is Football.
And what I seen was this whole raft of people a-setting on these two banks and a-looking at one another across this pretty little green cow pasture.
Carlin.
George Carlin?
No, Fred Carlin.
Fred Carlin?
Oh, George Carlin, yeah.
His half-brother?
Mm-hmm.
George Carlin, do I think he's underrated, overrated, or perfectly rated?
It'd be hard to call him underrated, probably, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would say he's about right. He's rated well, which he should be. I think in his later career, it got to be a little bit almost catchphrasey in a way. Whereas before he would, I don't know, his more political stuff was more pointed and more personal, and towards the end of his career, like that's kind of what he was. You felt like he was almost being dragged along with it, like he wasn't really driving it anymore.
I think you're probably right, yeah. My feelings on Carlin is I think he was a great stand-up and brilliant, but I'd watch his stand-up and I didn't laugh out loud all that much. Sometimes I would chuckle knowingly. 3 more.
Okay.
Gallagher 1.
I'm still stuck in the 60s.
Gallagher?
Mm-hmm.
Was he underrated, overrated, or perfectly rated?
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Look, I think
Gallagher has a place here. I know he does.
Got a place in my heart.
The mamas and the papas still get to meet.
Me and my sister watched 2 of his specials that were on VHS that we went to our local gas station to rent. Mm-hmm. And we'd rent those off and on for like a whole year. We watched those 2 specials of his over and over, laughing out loud, LOLing.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, every time he smashed a watermelon. Man, it was just the funniest thing. And then I turned 9.
Being a boy, it took me a little longer. I was still watching him up to about 13, 14. Actually, I think Gallagher was funny. I mean, I went back, when he died, I went back and watched some of his stuff. That was pretty funny. Not just the prop stuff. I mean, the prop stuff is the prop stuff, but some of his other stuff was all right. I think in the 80s, he was probably overrated. I think now he's probably a little underrated. People look back on him as this corny thing, and wasn't entirely true.
My hair is still long, the new ride is still wrong, and I still ain't got my degree.
Gallagher 2. I think that was when his brother took over the mantle for a little while.
I don't remember that one.
Most people don't, but we'll do a video over it one of these days, Gallagher 1 and 2. No, I think it was his brother or somebody just who looked like him, and he let him tour under the name Gallagher 2, and I think he would do the same bit, like Gallagher TOO.
Really?
Yes, really. I got to do a video on this, all right.
That can't be right.
Well. One more, just because I thought of him. I know you love him. Patrice.
Patrice O'Neal.
One of your favorites, right? I was surprised he wasn't your top 3.
I think he was underrated, but I think he kind of engineered being underrated because he wasn't, I mean, he didn't compromise. He did a lot of things that people didn't like. He did a lot of things that I didn't like. There were a lot of topics that he had during his stand-up that were way over the top, and he wouldn't compromise. So I think he kept himself pretty underrated. But you want to talk about a funny dude. He was funny. He was way funny.
He was a lot like Norm. He wouldn't compromise his funny for business stuff, and it cost him a lot of work, from what I hear, and even him telling when he's still alive, talking about it. Mm-hmm. I wonder how he would have done in today. You know?
Yeah.
If he would have lived or whatever, I just don't know how Patrice would have made it in this climate.
Yeah, I don't know, but he was
canceled every couple minutes, probably.
Probably, yeah.
All right. Thank you all for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, and let us know who your favorites are in the comments below.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Bye.